Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I am, as always, I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Machine being a little bit ironic this time around, for I'm talking to one of the writers of possibly some of the most ultimate machines in the world of science fiction, the Blade Runners and the Replicants. I'm talking to Mellow Brown. Mellow, so nice of you to join me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, Johnny.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. So, your trade paperback's due out on August 18th. This is the trade paperback of Volume 1 of Blade Runner Origins. All right. So let's start at the top and work our way down. How'd you get into Blade Runner?
Actually, got into Blade Runner in a very funny way, which is the initial date and release of Blade Runner. Like a lot of people, was a bit before my time.
Whoa! Let's not go that far. Check out the grey hair, dudes. I mean, come on.
this gray beard is catching up right there. I actually discovered Blade Runner via Tiny Toons on on Fox Kids, I believe that was. So used to
oh my god!
And they had like this very funny parody with like Buster Bunny and Babs Bunny, where it's like real kids don't eat broccoli, blah blah blah, and that's how they kind of told if someone was a replicant or not. But the background world that they ended up showing was so cool in terms of like the cyberpunk nature and things like that. And I immediately just started like just bugging my parents about it, and they're like, "You're not old enough for this." And eventually the door opened, and then I ended up diving fully into just cyberpunk, and it was actually a lead into it with other properties that were like taking bits and pieces of Blade Runner. But Blade Runner did it like no other. Like it was definitely worth the wait. So yeah,
cool.
That was my intro to that world.
Excellent. For me, I remember being on a summer holiday on the North Yorkshire coast of the UK, and I picked up the Blade Runner novelisation for about £1. And
Nice.
Crazy. My parents were going through a bit of a divorce, and after I'd read the book, on one of my visits to my dad was always giving me grief about reading proper science fiction because I was a Star Wars nerd. Like, can't like Star Wars if you like to watch proper science fiction. That was his thing. So I was like, Dad, I've read this really cool book. It's called Blade Runner. And he went upstairs and he pulled out a first print of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Nice. So I was like, fair enough, Dad, you got me beat on that one. So there you go. But Blade Runner is not your only writing credit. You've written before, you've written for TV, correct?
Yes, I was a staff writer on American Gods, and that was with Brian Fuller and Michael Green, which was a really wild experience. And I've also been on Calls, which is on Apple TV Plus. You can actually catch it on there now. And there's some more stuff on the way that I'm really excited when we can finally announce it. So yeah.
Don't worry, I'll turn the tape off then. Don't worry. All right. So how different is it, kind of writing for TV as writing for comic books? And I noticed that the Blade Runner Origins book, there's 3 writers. So does writing in a kind of a TV setting with the traditional writer's room, does that kind of help you get into that kind of mentality where there's more than one voice trying to pitch an idea or a beat of a story?
Well, I'm very lucky to have my co-writers, both Mike Johnson and Perkins. Shout out to both of them right now. In regards to our experience in writers' rooms, we all have worked in other projects, whether that be video games or just film and television. Actually met Perkins on the show that I mentioned before, Calls, when we were over at Apple. And that's kind of like how our friendship locked in, and we were definitely like, this is the project for us. We like sci-fi stuff, but And the process that we have there is always, in order for something to feel real, in order for something to feel like it, I can't expect an audience to be pulled into anything that I write if I'm not also having like a visceral reaction to everything that I'm putting on the page. And Perkins is exactly the same way. And the best thing we could do about that was take these characters and place our own experiences and kind of mold them into what Blade Runner is. There's a lot that Blade Runner hasn't covered in terms of society. There is a very strong laser focus on like Deckard and specifically the replicants, but there's just these people that you see kind of like in the gray in the background.
Right.
So by focusing on like we want to take like almost like the Dark Knight approach, where by the end of that movie you're like, I know what it feels like to live in Gotham City.
Right. Okay.
And
cool.
like it sucks. There's bombs everywhere. There's a killer clown. There's like everyone in that city has been through it by the end of the Dark Knight. And giving Blade Runner a feeling of that, where you're just like, I know what it feels like to live in Cyberpunk 2009 LA. And by having like a larger cast of characters, which you'll see soon coming up in more issues. So yeah.
Cool. So it's interesting you bring up the whole kind of the wide escape, because obviously in the movie you have those great big cinematic kind of shots that establish, you know, the city as this great big sprawling, I'd say metropolis, but that's copyrighted somewhere else. Sprawling cityscape that kind of just goes on forever. And when we meet Deckard, he's kind of living in the bowels of that, and he's eating God knows what instead of proper food and stuff. So how did you kind of think about, well, you know what, there are other shades of grey behind the key characters. You know, there is you've got Deckard, and you've got Rachel, and you've got the Tyrell Corporation and all that stuff, but there are other people. It's a sprawling cityscape. So how did you kind of look for those voices, I suppose, and those characters, and how to effectively represent them?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was actually looking into what we were allowed to dip into and what we were able to talk about. There's things that I can't even discuss that have to do with all of the Blade Runner mythology, because of the mystery of tons of people still ask me whenever they find out I'm writing it, like, so is Deckard a replicant? Or I'm like, and just back away. And but I think the main thing that I've focused on really heavily personally is the concept of what a Blade Runner is and what the movies are trying to say, and what Ridley Scott wanted to say, what Michael Green wanted to say, which is essentially Blade Runners are slave catchers. And what we see them do in the entire process of these movies are they don't want to do it anymore by the end of their stories.
Yeah.
They hit a point where they're just like, I realize what I do is shitty, and like it, and that's kind of what makes it very noir. It's it is the deconstruction of the individual that you watch, your protagonist, hitting this point where they're just like, what I'm doing is very shitty. And I think that was the entire point of the final cut, where the final cut actually takes the image of Deckard and shows him as the villain. It doesn't have his narration, and more importantly, and when the classic Tears in the Rain scene delivered by Rutger Hauer, that moment is actually showing that he allowed himself to be shot by Deckard. Which is his presence of saying, like, I am more human than you in this moment. But Deckard still pulls the trigger out of fear. So it's a question of what's human. And in our definition, are we cynical or optimistic about it? And are replicants more optimistic about that term? So digging with that information there, it's sort of like, where did this all start? Where are these characters coming from? Because they're about to go into a very dark path into this relationship. So finding where these people are and being more fortunate of having a timeline that feels, we're in a world that feels a little bit closer to ours, but still very distant. We don't have flying spinners. We're able to see how do you get from point A to point B, and what drives these characters into this sad point where it's just like, are we all products at this point? Like, not just a replicant, but like everyone that's working here.
I don't, I've never even thought of that angle of that movie. I've never even to me, being old school sci-fi, I hear replicant, I think android. I think, I don't, and when you think android, you think tool, the thing that's supposed to make your life easier. I never thought of it from that point of view at all. And it's kind of
in the opening crawl, actually, they even mentioned, like, both opening crawls to both movies bring up the word slavery.
Yeah.
And how replicants are like, once they become realized and they wake up and they're just like, these are the conditions that I live under. And I have like other people who are stuck under this. I don't even have a society because I have no rights or anything like that. That is why they run. And that is, they're just like, I need to be anything but this.
So then, do you think there's a correlation between the Blade Runner and, say, the Sandman from Logan's Run?
Yes. There. I think there's the context there is always the concept of
keeping the society safe. That's what the Sandmen practically do, isn't it? It's like, this is your set structure, and you've got to go, when you hit 30, that's it. You're done for. Yeah. And so I'd be screwed twice over. So the maybe not that old, but still. And the Sandmen are there to ensure that happens. And when you have a runner, it's the Sandman that puts them to sleep to maintain the structure
of society.
Yeah.
So that way the status quo never breaks, and you haven't developed a new minority because we eliminate them anytime they surface. And the Blade Runner is that. The Blade Runner is 100% the villain of their own story every time. And I think looking into the franchise as we start to explore both the new anime on the way and new stories and even the different books that we have going right now, every Blade Runner runs into that path. Mike Johnson doing amazing work over on 2029. Immediately, his character Ash, she is bumping up against where like she no longer wants to be a Blade Runner, and everything that's happening in her life is in regards to, like, you can't escape the things that you did. You are existing amongst replicants right now, but replicants also, remember, where in the first issue of that book, she was enjoying ripping them apart and selling the pieces, and they're just like, that doesn't mean you're not a monster anymore. So there's Blade Runners are definitely the villains of their own stories, and it's interesting.
So with your lead character in Origins, it's Detective Cal, who kind of stumbles onto the potential for shenanigans, shall we say, over at the Tyrell Corporation. So just to clarify, before we go into story mode, this is a trade paperback of the 4 issues. All right, we're not going to delve into the ifs and fors of all the 4 issues. All right, because you know what? I'm lucky enough to have read it. Mellow read it when he wrote it. So we want you guys who are watching the pod to go and buy the damn thing. So, but, there might be some beats that you're coming up. And if you start shouting at me that it's a spoiler, well, just remember, issue 1 and 4 have already been out. It's your fault you missed it the first time round. All right? There you go. Fair warning. Right, so Detective Cal. So, your creation or a culmination of the 3 of you working together?
It's a culmination. The concept of Cal actually came from a team effort of Mike Johnson and Perkins, and Mike Johnson mentioned an incident where the Dr. Lydia Kine, who is one of our lead characters in this story, was brought up in an anniversary issue for his book, and then Perkins came on and was just like, maybe Cal Moreau should be what's very interesting here, and then I jumped on the project. And Cal Moreau has a lot of my personal backstory within the military, and a lot of what comes from that, and a lot of what his experiences are from being like, I was in a low income neighborhood, I went to the military, and I probably should have stayed in a low income neighborhood. And in terms of him basically discovering I am a product,
Right.
which is not that different from the perspective of when replicants discover that about themselves.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what this story does is that everyone discovers, in a way, I am a product of society, and the things that the machinations that are higher than me, especially in the cyberpunk universe where everything and everyone is owned. And this is a story about what people are doing about that.
Right.
And the ramifications of it will change the way everyone will look at Blade Runner in the future. And I can't wait for people to see why.
Right. Okay. So was it a conscious choice? Because if Blade Runner, the original, the android's dream of electric sheep, there was, I don't think, I'm going back a while, so bear in mind, look at my grey hair. I read it when I was a kid. I don't think reading the book, I was aware of any sort of predetermination that Deckard was obviously going to have to be a white character or anything like that. Cal is a person of color. We're looking at some other social ideas that are getting put in, that you're bringing into your book, the Blade Runner Origins book. Do you find that it's easier or harder to represent today's society in something like Blade Runner that's futuristic? Where, because on one hand you've got stuff like Star Trek and everybody's equal and everybody loves each other. Nobody ever argues on the Enterprise. If you noticed, nobody ever argues. It's like, Captain, you're flying into a black hole. Yes, that's right, I am. And nobody bats an eyelid. It's crazy, So how easy is it to kind of get today's, I guess, societal needs? And they are societal needs, everyone should be represented across the board, right? So how easy is it to get those sort of those societal needs into something that is kind of futuristic, such as Blade Runner? Even though I know that Origins is set 10 years before the original movie, we're still talking like that neo-future style.
I think it's pretty easy. Just like I think even the concept with Star Trek is pretty easy, because like the entire concept of Star Trek, which I closely discovered by accident, was it's the Navy. Like you can't disagree. You're going to the black hole. Like it's happening.
Yes, sir. Full steam ahead, sir.
And with a lot that's happening in Blade Runner and real life right now, I would say if you were to look at the conditions of the world, both in terms of political and literal climate, a lot of what is happening there is we're in what is the precursor to what cyberpunk will be.
Okay.
As long as we're giving out money to Amazon, they may send a bunch of Amazon carriers into space to go get a xenomorph. But
hell, I don't even like spiders. Bring one of those back, and that's it. I'm done for.
Yeah. So having using the context of what we already relate to on a day-to-day basis and then applying it to Blade Runner isn't very hard, especially dealing with one thing that myself and Perkins were very happy to do was to introduce a character in here without getting to spoilers, identifies as something that we haven't seen in Blade Runner before, and is later pronounced to be a trans character, and that's dealing with identity and the value of bodies, which already is Blade Runner.
Yeah, definitely.
The minute that a replicant realizes, like, I am a person, I am not a thing. I can make my own choices. I know what I like and I dislike. I hate pain and I want to live. That's a person. That's not. That's not a thing.
That's a fair shout, definitely.
And also the concept of just like, how am I valued? And a replicant does not have rights. A replicant does not have like, if a replicant was basically going down the street and it was an obedient replicant, and someone were to shove that replicant in front of a car and they were to be knocked back, there would be no legal action taken for the person that shoved them, because they're just like, that's a product, that's a thing, that's not, even though like it experiences that, remembers that, has an emotional reaction. And
it's funny you mention this, because I think I saw something on Twitter a while ago, and it was there was a robot who was trying to walk or do something, you know. And this is a real life robot, by the way. So like, someone's built this robot, it's trying to walk, and then these two people are hitting it with a baseball bat.
Boston Dynamics,
all the robot knows is it has to put one foot in front of the other. That's all it knows. And yet my heart, I couldn't watch it. I had to turn it off. I was like, I was near tears. I was like, stop hitting the robot. Why are you doing that? There's no reason for it. But the robot was kind of like doing its, you know, it's kind of like, it's not, but it's kind of like beating a dog and then the dog comes back. It's like, stop doing stuff. Just stop doing cruel shit for cruel reasons. Honestly, I was furious.
It's incredibly dark. And it's one of those things where, so on our end, we don't know what the programming is inside of that robot.
Yeah.
Like, if the response is just like one thing we actually bring up is two things that kind of show both the folly and the egotism of humans, which is what made you allow replicants to feel pain, which is so cruel. Like you did that for a reason, and like part of it, you have to wonder what the logic was involved with that, and we get into that. And the second thing is, like, you can make them look like anything. You chose to make them look like us.
How do you sleep at night with all this going on in your head? I was just here to talk about comic books, and now look at us. We're like, what's going on?
But that is kind of like that's sort of like the response that people have to the Overlook effect, right? Like in terms of like going to space and then looking down at Earth, and then there are people who are just like, like that means nothing to me. There's other people who like lose it, and they're just like, I am insignificant, and I am just like a microcosm of what this planet has to offer, and everything I've had barely matters, and they lose their minds from just the overwhelming feeling.
I'm that person. I used to live in a very rural area, and I'd walk my dog on an evening, especially in winter when it gets dark early, and on a cloudless night, you can just sit and look at the stars. It just, honestly, you feel that big.
Yeah, which for me is also comforting.
I don't know. I feel that sometimes this is a little bit too dark, I suppose, but sometimes I felt back then that if I dropped off the face of the planet, would anybody even know that I wasn't there anymore? Because I'm that small. But, you know, hey ho, I didn't. I'm still here. So there you go.
A, sorry to hear that. But B, that is also one of those things that show someone's extreme response to the Overlook effect is a response of someone who empathizes and views the world in a specific way. I mean, we have so many billionaires going into space right now. They came back exactly the same. I own that chunk right there.
That's what they're looking. They're looking down and thinking, see that? See that? That's what I own. See this? This is what you own.
Yeah.
Your bit of the planet's bigger than my bit of the planet. All right, whatever. So, we talk about the movies a little bit. So, is it safe to say that the definitive director cut is your favorite cut of the movie, or do you like all the variants of the movie for different reasons?
I would definitely say Final Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, Final Cut, because it does the reading. It makes sense. It makes sense why that was the final cut. I can see why a studio is just like, we're not, like, the Blade Runner isn't the villain. We're not making a movie about a villain. We're making a movie about like cop shoots bad robots, pew pew. But
hey, I've seen that show.
but Final Cut is like this very, like, you're going on this dark journey of people trying to discover themselves, and you're following the man who's just like, my job is to stop them from having that happen. And it is a reverse Alice in Wonderland, where every time he eliminates a replicant, he is discovering more about himself and how much he regrets it, to the point where by the end of the movie, he is just like, well, I'm done with my badge. Like, that was,
To me, I mean, let's give a little bit of credit where credit's due. At the start of the movies, is all, that he ends up where he starts. At the start of the movie, he's like, he's out of it. I'm done. Leave me alone. I want to eat my fish scales. Leave me alone. Gets pulled back in, and then. So I think one of the biggest oxymorons for me when it comes to Blade Runner is that Marvel Comics did a movie adaptation, and hey, it looked great. Al Williamson art, but why on earth did Marvel Comics do it? I mean, obviously they're thinking, yay, it's got Harrison Ford in it, it's going to be like Star Wars. No. I read that comic book when I was a kid, and it made no sense. Hence, I bought the book. But
I actually haven't had my hands on that version of it before, and like we, as you know, we aren't tied to Marvel now, and it's not within easy access to me like the rest of the Blade Runner products being released today.
But if I ever see it in a comic book mart or in a sale somewhere, I will certainly partake of the poundage and send that across to you.
I appreciate that.
I love Al Williamson's art. I think it's great, but from the mature story to like, and in fact, what made it worse is they ran it in like chopped up bits at the back in a serial style in the back of a Star Wars comic. So you're buying it because you're a kid that likes Star Wars, and at the back of the comic you get Blade Runner. And the Daryl Hannah art's bang on, and she's half naked. You're like, what? How did I get this in Star Wars?
Yeah, it looks like from what I've heard, it always sounds like it was made by. I don't want to insult people either, but
no, it was a tie-in book made to make money based on the theatrical release, which was the Gumshoe Detective style movie. Which, if anyone who loves the Gumshoe realizes that after you've watched the director's cut, it doesn't hold up all that well. But
it's because it always sounds like it's like shooting replicants rules is what the book is. And then it's sort of like how I think the best so this may be my favorite science fiction franchise, being Mobile Suit Gundam. It's a Japanese anime franchise called Gundam.
There you go.
And the entire concept is like the kid gets inside of a robot and is fighting off like other people in giant robots, and they're more similar to Nazis. But the irony is that it's taking the idea of that very childlike story of kid gets into the robot and save the world, but he is getting PTSD. He is suffering from it. The robot has American flag colors, and it's being ran on like the innocence of a child soldier who is slowly molding into a more heartless person who's like just counting the bodies because he's so good at doing his job now. So it's a complete parody of what we should be looking at in science fiction, where it's like, this robot looks cool, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, but but there's subtext. And
just imagine if that was the real deal when people were playing Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And on that note, right, we're going to take a quick break and advert for one of our favourite shows on the UCPN. I don't think there's many Blade Runner toys kicking around. You never know, there might be some models in there. But here's one of the adverts for the Crisis in Toyverse. Everybody who watches this advert seems to love it. So here you go, and we'll be back in a couple of seconds. Wow, nice. So then, check out Bobo there with all the statues, figures across comic books, across TV, across lots of different media. All right, there you go. So we can't talk Blade Runner without talking cityscapes. All right. So I showed this a little bit earlier. I'm just going to do it again. So this is your artist. It's Fernando Dagino. Is that right? Or Ferdinand Dagino?
Yes, Fernando does an incredibly fantastic job on this book, and we all feel extremely lucky to have him.
That just screams Blade Runner there, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So how was it when there's the three of you? I always sometimes think that writers end up being like mini editors who kind of like, because it's their story and they kind of mold it and stuff, and they're the guys that talk to the artists about whatever. How is it when there's this three-headed beast kind of thing? How is it that if your story point comes up and you think, well, hold on a second, I didn't quite like this bit, can you, or does somebody take point on all that?
I think it's more or less so in terms of writing this particular story, going back to, we always want somebody to feel something visceral by the end of the issue, or have something to be very excited about. Like, you don't walk away from a single issue feeling unsatisfied and and a major thing happened. What we do is we decide on that point, and then we build around that. And it's sort of like oh, this character is going to be shooting this character at some point in this issue. Both the results of this and everything that happens before this, it's a crescendo that we should be writing around, because it's A, making everyone care about that moment, and then B, having these characters have realistic reactions to it, and then bringing us along for that ride as well. Don't get too close to spoilers in this. But there's so much in regards to kind of like building that out. And then Fernando, what we're usually expressing to him is just the emotion of the scene, how it should feel, and what these characters are like. And we're very lucky to have him because he nails it. He kills it every time. Even just knowing that, like, this is 2009 Los Angeles. This particular shot right here, where it's this beautiful sunset over this cyberpunk LA. The Blade Runners that we've seen before, sunsets are very rare. Just global warming has wrecked just LA in the movies.
You've got like the smog background as well between which I thought was really quite clever, because it indicates that whilst this may be cyberpunk, there is still an element of realism in there.
Yes, it is. Since we're seeing the year 2009 in this, things are. It is this version of the world dying out. The shift is coming, which is the entire theme of our book.
Cool. Excellent, excellent. All right. So when we talk about Blade Runner, obviously you have an affinity for the book. Do you read comics yourself now? Are you still into comics?
Yes, I do.
All right. So what are you reading right now?
I am reading The Immortal Hulk.
All right, okay.
Like so many others.
Loads of people seem to love that book. Like I must admit. Yeah.
I've been diving into Something's Killing the Children.
Very good. Very good.
And I have also Home Pilots. It's 3 nouns. Something pilots. Something right. Stone Pilots, but not Stone Temple Pilots, obviously. But it is definitely like teenagers piloting a haunted house like a mech.
All right.
And
okay.
The art is amazing. The characters are very badass. It's a lot of fun. And yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Something Killing the Children is brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, it is.
If you want to walk on the wild side, check out Stray Dogs. Stray Dogs by Image. That's very, very good.
Nice.
Maybe not sci-fi, but if you want that emotional response that you're talking about.
No, like writing this is definitely maybe dip into more stuff that is more fantasy or going into other areas than sci-fi. So,
okay, cool. Okay, so Blade Runner. If you're talking Blade Runner, you've got to talk about a certain little test.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the Voight-Kampff test. Now, thanks to the wonders of today's Tinterweb, I have managed to locate for us. Boom, there we go. Here we are. It is the Are You Really Human test. Now, according to the website from which I took this, these are all questions that appear either in the movie or in the book. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, everybody check his eyes for some blink response. Here we go. Someone gives you a calfskin wallet for your birthday. How do you react?
I would accept it.
You would appreciate it. Excellent. Good call. Your little boy shows you his butterfly collection plus the killing jar. What do you say? Oh, lovely. That's nice, but why do you keep the killing jar? Why don't you keep the killing jar for yourself? Nothing. I take my boy to the doctor.
Nothing. I'll take my boy to the doctor.
Yeah, that's the one I went with. You're watching television. Suddenly you spot a wasp crawling on your arm. How do you react? I scream, then grab the closest object to me, which happens to be a can of sunscreen, and beat the hell out of it. I swat it away. I kill it.
I swat it.
Yeah, I did that one as well. Yeah, excellent. You're reading a magazine and you come across a full-page nude photo of a girl or a guy. You show it to your husband or wife, who likes it so much he or she hangs it on your bedroom wall. The guy or the girl is lying on a bearskin rug. I wouldn't allow that. I would take it down. Huh?
That would be a huh.
Yeah, I'm on that. Yeah, I agree with that one. While walking along in desert sand, you suddenly look down and see a tortoise crawling towards you. You reach down and flip it over onto its back. The tortoise lies there, its belly baking in the hot sun, beating its leg, trying to turn itself over. But it cannot do so without your help. You are not helping. Why? What do you mean I'm not helping? What's a tortoise? I don't know why I would flip the turtle over in the first place.
What do you mean I'm not helping?
Okay. Describe in single words only the good things that come to mind about your mother. Warm voice and cookies, music, love, summer, sun, books, movies, friends, laughter. My mother, I'll tell you about my mother. I might be editorializing on the tone here, sorry.
Warm voice, cookies.
Yeah. My mother, I'll tell you about my mother. React to this. You become pregnant by a man who runs off with your best friend. You decide to get an abortion. I would never have an abortion. What do you think? What do you think I'd do with my boyfriend? And okay, I think there's a first time for everything.
The last one.
Yeah. Okay. React to this. You're watching a stage play. A banquet is in progress. The guests are enjoying an appetizer of raw oysters. The entree consists of boiled dog stuffed with rice. The raw raw oysters are less acceptable to you than a dish of boiled dog. Is that disgusting? I wouldn't eat boiled dog. Not true.
Not true.
Not true. All right. Test is over. How many answers do you think were given by machines? That's machines other than me.
um, 3.
3. Ooh. All right. What do you think of the test? Was it fun? It was boring. It will not affect your results.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. There you go.
How
Test
rude would it be to say
Let's
number
see. So you are human or a droid? Not bad. You are mostly human. You probably choose some of the same answers given by Cleverbot. There you go. You're almost
Can't
there.
wait to tell my wife. Yeah. Getting close.
Getting close. I'm almost there, man. Almost there. It's funny because you see the Void Conf a couple of times in the movie, don't you? Because there's the first on the worker gets it, and then he I think he kills him at the tortoise question, and then you see Deckard do it again, with a worker and with Rachel. I think he does it with Rachel as well, to try and get like a baseline. Of course, he doesn't know what we know. Cool.
There's so much depth in terms of how the Void Camp is used as well, and that's a question that we bring up in the book. Way later, you'll be seeing that in volume 3, where there's a discussion of where it's like, where did the Void Camp come from, and has it ever been used on a human?
Yeah, and who says those questions are? That's totally. It's a good avenue to go through. It's an interesting point you bring up with here, Mellow, is that the book is set 10 years before the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So each arc, what sort of time frame are you talking about for each arc? So each book's issue 1 through 4, is that like a year, like the 10 years before? Volume 2, is it like 8 years before, or is it kind of not as? See what I'm getting at?
So without ruining too much, the first arc of it is within the span of about 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the second arc, which is almost one full arc itself, really the whole thing is really one arc. It was like the 1 year. Arc 2 and 3 are only 1 week.
All right.
And within that time, it's because we thought about that for a while. It's the level of, if a replicant were to go wild, then immediately everything would explode.
yeah. That's why the 4-year thing's built into them, right? Or allegedly built into them.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So do you therefore see this as an ongoing story chopped into mini arcs that kind of over arc as well?
Yes. As so far as from what we have had planned, it's been these tiny little can't say tiny. To say that it is just a story in like this very like insular and that only holds the characters that we've seen in volume 1 would also be untrue. What we're going to see is from the perspectives of other parts of LA that have never been explored within Blade Runner before, but exists outside in the real world, and how they would be in a cyberpunk world. So by having those little chapters, you're able to have parallel stories that kind of create this powder keg. And within like this one particular week that we're telling in this part of the story, it all adds up into something small that blows into something big, and then you'll be able to have more stories happen afterwards, whether you want to explore more Cal or potential spin-offs or whatever Titan and Alkai would like to do next. But the door is wide open there.
I feel sorry for the guy that has to work all your continuity out. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, they'll have many characters to choose from.
Yeah, it's going to be like pieces of paper all over the place. With like, what's this character doing? What's that character doing?
It'd be like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, always sunny in LA. Watch out for the runners. All right, so Blade Runner Origins, Volume 1, the collected 4-issue book, is out on August the 18th. Go check it out at your local comic book shop. It's from Titan Comics, so it'll be available online as well. I am pretty much sure. Cool. What would you say? What would be your final word to induce somebody, if you're going to use your force-like powers, to check out Blade Runner Origins? What would be your final sort of like selling point?
Accept new knowledge, but never give in to astonishment.
There you go. There you go. What a good message. All right. Mellow, don't disappear at the end because we're just going to run some credits. Guys, thank you so much for joining me and Mellow as we talked about Blade Runner Origins. Really do appreciate it. Mellow, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I won't tell everybody that you have got meetings after this and before that, so I'm not your only person. I won't say that. We'll keep that between you and me. I'm joking.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Shh, don't say it. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows, including Crisis in the Toyverse, Flipside Focus, which focuses on indie books, which, you know what, you might just have to have another pop at this Blade Runner book just to give it some more love. And of course, if you want to go old school, don't forget to check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. You never know, that Blade Runner Marvel book might just make an appearance shortly. Who knows, right? All right. So, Mellow, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you've got a lot going on, no joking aside. So, thanks so much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun, an honor,
Good.
and a pleasure.
Well, thank you for producing and working on such a great book. I absolutely enjoyed reading it, and thank you for kind of, giving me something to think about Blade Runner. So I really do appreciate that. I'm going to have to go back and have another bash at the movie with that in mind now. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So this is Join the Machine Hughes saying adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.